welcome to AUDL Weekly. As you certainly already know, if you saw the commercials on AUDL.tv this past weekend, this is the show dedicated to ultimate stories, perspective, conversations, and more. My name's Evan Lepler, and I'm feeling good after an exhilarating first weekend of the 2022 AUDL season. And we're just getting started, back at it with 10 more games coming up in week 2, 12 more weeks after that. And that's before the postseason even starts. Here on the show tonight, we've got an extended conversation with the coach of the Salt Lake Shred. Bryce and Merrill breaks down their incredible season opening road trip. Later on, Adam and Daniel debate the biggest stories around the league. And then Matt Smith, or perhaps I should call him Matt number one play on SportsCenter Smith. Oh, he's got Minnesota's Nick Vogt in this week's brand new Up, Line, and Out of Bounds. But first, let's toss around some of the Week 1 drama. You are watching AUDL Weekly on AUDL.tv, so stick around. All right, welcome back. I was fortunate this past weekend getting to see Atlanta and Carolina on Friday, and then New York and DC on Saturday. They were both amazingly high-level ultimate games that didn't necessarily feel like season openers, which sometimes, understandably, can be a little shaky. But look, all around the league, the level of play was generally super high in Week 1, which bodes well for the most competitive season in AUDL history. Obviously, Carolina and New York were both mighty impressive in their wins. Flyers over the Hustle 16-14, and the Empire over the Breeze 22-19. But frankly, even the losers of those games looked like championship weekend contenders in defeat. Elsewhere, the Salt Lake Shred completely transformed everyone else's expectations of them by sweeping San Diego and Los Angeles in their first ever games as a franchise. It was 24-22 on Friday over the Growlers, 25-22 on Saturday over the Aviators. And look, San Diego and LA both had their fair share of highlights and positive moments too. They're both good teams, but the Shred, doing what they did, absolutely stole the headlines across the league in Week 1. It's important to remember, just for perspective, how tough it is to win any game on the road, let alone 2 in back-to-back days against good opponents. So the Shred have put the rest of the league on notice. Jordan Kerr and company are here to contend. Portland Nitro also had a tremendous debut performance against Seattle, winning 29-24 behind the offensive wizardry of Daniel Lee, Leandro Marks, Rafi Hayes, and others. Jack Hatchett also with a huge debut for the Portland D-line, although that's more of what we expected than a huge surprise. Speaking of debuts, how about Declan Miller and Zeppelin Raunig, 2 teenagers in their first AUDL games, combining for 12 goals, 2 assists, 9 hockey assists, 4 blocks, and over 1,200 freaking yards. Meanwhile, you can combine the 2 ages of Miller and Raunig, and that combined age is still a couple years younger than Adam Simon, who's 39, and also threw for over 600 yards in the loss to Portland on Sunday. So despite that loss, pretty clear that Chicken, as he's long been known, still has some gas left in the tank, and the Cascades have a tantalizing set of young prospects to build around. This West Division is going to be fun. Quick run through the rest of the scores. Boston hangs on against Philly for the 25-24 win. Encouraging result for the Glory, though we shall see if they're ready to truly contend over the next couple of weeks as they travel to Canada for a doubleheader this weekend, and then they host New York in Week 3. Elsewhere, Montreal takes care of Toronto 26-19. The Royals, 7th straight time defeating the Rush. Still kind of crazy how much that rivalry has swung into the Royals' favor over the past few years. In the Central Division, Chicago dominates Pittsburgh 19-8 on Sunday afternoon, one day after the Thunderbirds denied Detroit their first win in over 5 years. 17-13 Pittsburgh win over the Mechanix on Saturday to extend the Detroit losing streak to an incomprehensible 51 consecutive losses. Elsewhere in the South, Atlanta rebounds from their opening night loss in Durham to destroy Tampa Bay 24-12. Hustle actually down 6-5 after one, but Atlanta dominated the rest of the way, finished the weekend 1-1. And last but certainly not least, big game in Texas, Austin Soul defeating the Dallas Legion 20-17. AUDL All-Star Kyle Henke with a strong performance in his first game playing back for Austin since he joined Dallas last year. But perhaps the more fun note is that Kyle's 18-year-old brother Mark also caught a goal on Saturday night, his first career score while making his AUDL debut. Lots of great brother combinations around the league right now. All right, that's the quick rundown for week one. Let's get to the conversation with Salt Lake head coach Bryce Merrill. After their incredible wins over San Diego and LA, the Shreds Sensei coming up next as we continue on AUDL Weekly. Back on AUDL Weekly, could not fathom a better guest to have after the remarkable Salt Lake Shred Week 1 performance and the head coach, Bryce Merrill. Bryce, welcome to AUDL Weekly. Congratulations on just a fantastic, unbelievable opening weekend. How you feeling a few days after starting 2-0?
Well, Evan, it's great to be here, and I think it's great. We could not have been more excited about some of the things coming together. If you had asked me, 2 weeks ago at one of our practices when we couldn't reset the disc, it was getting a little bit weird, but things came together and the guys showed up, and just a fun opening weekend, some highlight energy, and really just exciting.
So in your wildest dreams coming into the AUDL, what were your expectations and where did you let your dreams take you, knowing that you entered with a talented team that perhaps was also under the radar, which is a pretty good combination?
Yeah, I don't think we would have pursued this if we didn't think we had a roster of players and athletes that could do what they needed to do in this league. And so, also we thought it might take more time, and we've only won, it's been one weekend, but we knew, and now we get to build on that. But we knew the talent was there, the athleticism was there, and making some of the adjustments from the club and college game to the AUDL game really came together, and it's just been so exciting to see. I'd be selling myself short if I didn't think we had a very talented roster that could do what they did, but also it was really exciting to see it come together in that first weekend, and hopefully something we're able to build on the rest of the season.
And a lesson to everyone that the first point or the first O point isn't always indicative of how the weekend is going to go, because the first point of the season, San Diego throws a little sideline trap. You turn it quickly. They break you quickly. Did any doubt seep into your mind after that first point of your AUDL coaching career?
We had a good laugh in the vans on the way to the game, knowing that it would be the first franchise turnover, the first franchise drop, the first franchise, trip on the goal line, whatever it was. And so honestly, to get it out of the way 10 seconds in really made it easy the rest of the game, the rest of the weekend, to have some of that in the rearview mirror. A little funny, and you hope that that's not going to be the rest of the game, but got it out of the way. They bounce back, they take a breath, and move on.
For folks who did not see the game in its entirety on Friday night, what would you say were the main stories of the night with you and San Diego battling back and forth, both teams making a bunch of plays, and what was ultimately the difference for Salt Lake down the stretch, in your opinion?
We knew that was going to be a game. Obviously, you have the defending division champs, and so we knew that we would have to keep them out of their comfort zone early. If they got into a groove, we would have a real hard time. And so our entire game plan was to make sure that the style of Ultimate benefited us and not them, and to give ourselves some of the room that we wanted to be able to play, big athletic Ultimate. And so the other thing is, our coaching group got together and reviewed a lot of film and last year's division championship and last year's championship weekend footage, and we realized how little we knew about the 2022 version of the Growlers. And so we ended up scrapping a lot of our San Diego game plan and just said, you know what, let's play shred and let's focus on our game and go from there. And I think that was good. I think we got, we prevented ourselves from overcoaching in that first game and over scouting and just let our guys get comfortable on the field, get some resets. We ran a couple of junk sets early just so that San Diego wouldn't come out and score on us in 2 throws and get their crowd behind them. And so I think really, under coaching and just let the boys play benefited us as we got into a groove. And then, the second half of the first quarter and that second quarter, we were fluid, and that was good for me to see and good for the guys to feel confident and get in rhythm, so that coming out of halftime, I think we could amp them up and tell them to go finish their plays and get their Ds, and that we could hang with these guys, and they did just that. It was really neat to see.
What was the clinching moment down the stretch where you felt confident and you realized you were going to pull it off, and what was that like on the sidelines?
I could not have been more excited about our red zone efficiency and offense. We obviously had a couple of turns in the red zone, but to see my especially my O-line, to see KERR and Miller, Jensen Wells, who was like a college freshman, so he's not just an AUDL rookie. This is a young kid. And they just trusted each other. And when they sort of absorbed that lockdown pressure from the Growlers and just kept playing, I was like, you know what? I think we're going to be all right. I think we can. If we're not going to let them dictate how quickly we're going to try to score in the red zone, we're going to be just fine. And so to see them in the red zone, obviously there was a lot of hucks. Will Selfridge and Joe Merrill were feasting over the top and out in the big space. But when we were disciplined enough to let the red zone come to us, that was a good sign.
So you certainly benefit from having a bunch of guys with AUDL experience. Some of them you mentioned, like Jordan and Joe. And, last year in D.C., Joe Merrill, Joe Richards were nicknamed the J&J Roofing Company. Jordan and Joe Merrill were both dominant statistically and otherwise. Is there a nickname for those two that you'd like to throw out there? The J&J Shred Scoring Company? I don't have a good idea, but maybe you do.
I think the fans will determine that. We'll let the fans do what they do best and give us some nicknames here pretty soon. But to watch the two of them as a tandem was pretty neat. And as soon as there was a bunch of pressure on Joe Merrill, Will Selfridge stepped up. And as soon as they moved their lockdown defenders over to Selfridge, Joe went right back to it. And you had a couple of guys in the middle of the field. Anytime they put pressure somewhere, someone else got open and went from there. So I'm sure the fans or the hecklers, fans of the other team will come up with something soon. They'll let us know.
A lot of these guys you've coached, Bryce, for a long time, starting in college at BYU or perhaps even before then. And Jordan KERR has, received plenty of accolades throughout his college career for his achievement. And he was a very good player for the Spiders in the AUDL last year. But to erupt for 16 assists and over 1,000 yards and really just steady, precise quarterbacking of your team, I'm assuming you knew that he could do something about this. But what can you say about how KERR led the team, quarterback this group in the preseason and this past weekend?
I'd be selling you short if I didn't tell you we designed the offense around Jordan. And he is a unique talent, and he is a unique style of player that is worth building around. And then that's not to take away from the other 6 guys or, really 8 guys that are playing offense with him. But we build it to emphasize and use his strengths that really are difficult for defenses to contain. And so, this year, I don't want to give free scouting to our opponents, but we are cutter driven, and our goal is to get that disc in the middle of the field and let guys like Jordan make plays. And so, the continuation cuts, the yardage that we have really is there to emphasize and make it so that, Jordan can, do a few things that are going to be big, powerful throws, but mostly he uses the width of the field so effectively and lethally that it stretches and pulls those defenders, and then it opens up the middle for the Jacob Millers and the Joe Merrills to get their big column chunk yard gains. and let them, have at that. We were looking at Luke Jorgensen's stats, who's our, one of probably our center handler. If I had to say we had a center handler, him and Sean Cannell sort of splitting those duties. But he had some really big yardage stats for the weekend and like 2 hucks, so he's doing this basically 20 yards at a time to get it to Jordan and then let Jordan do his thing. And so, the guys on that line have played with Jordan. There is that natural chemistry. They also have a really deep understanding of what we are trying to accomplish on offense. It's not just scoring goals. It's creating the shape. It's the off disc movement. And so those 6 guys around Jordan know how to use him. They know what he likes, and they work together as a group of 7 very effectively. Could not have been more excited about Luke and Jensen and their efficiency with the disc. Jordan gets a lot of the stats, but he's set up really well in the red zone. We get the disc in motion to him in the break side, and Jordan takes it from there. Jay Mills really just keeping the possessions alive. So that offensive unit has, again, an understanding of what they want to do, what they're here to accomplish, and they were willing to sort of trust each other. And in a first weekend to work through that was pretty neat for me as a coach.
Hard to believe it was your first weekend competing together at this league level, although there's certainly lots of continuity from past teams that those guys have been on. So you win Friday night, and then you have another game Saturday. And I'm sure, a 1-1 weekend at that point wouldn't have felt all that satisfying, although you were thrilled to get the win. How did you start off as hot as you did against LA? You guys jumped out 5-1, 6-1, something like that?
Yeah, we hit the ground running. I just spent a minute extolling the O-line, but this is a defense-led team, and we're excited about that. Again, we scrapped some of our more advanced plans for the weekend and just decided to undercoach and let the boys play, and that was true on the defensive side. And so knowing how different the Aviators looked, and even, watching the footage from Colombia and trying to, anticipate what we might expect from them here, we knew it would be a little bit different than what we had seen. And so really what we wanted was to let our athletes make the play that they wanted to make. And so, Ben Hoffman, we wanted him under his guys so that we could get them to challenge him over the top. Or Joel Clutton obviously had a couple of big plays in the air. And so if we could get them to throw against the right guys, we knew we could steal a couple of Ds. And so shout out to our handler defenders, Garrett Martin and Chad Jorgensen, who had himself a weekend, Taylor Barton, each of them getting a chance to get the disc thrown towards their matchup and being in position to fix it and adjust to that. And so I think we hit the ground running. Obviously, we struggled with legs on the second half of the back-to-back. And but I was proud of the guys for digging in and slowing down the pace at a couple of opportune times so that we could stay fresh and stay physical and stay ahead of the play. And we were able to string together enough plays over the 2 hours to stay ahead and finish it off. Huge shout out to LA. They played a great game and they took advantage of the speed in the second half. But our guys made some defensive adjustments to slow them down and make sure that we didn't let them run us off the field there in the second half.
All right, let's wrap it up with this. How did this past weekend, if at all, redefine your expectations for the season, either from a winning perspective or just from what it takes to compete in an AUDL weekend perspective?
I'll end where I started. We wouldn't have done this if we didn't think we had the talent to compete with any team on any point, any quarter. And so it was neat to have the outcomes this weekend, but we're right where we want to be with a strong start, understanding there are a lot of games left. We cannot wait to get in front of the home crowd, but just so excited for the format of the league and playing in front of our friends and families in the youth scene here and getting there. So, we've believed, our Ted Lasso "We Believe" sign is hung and ready to go, but we're excited, and this, really affirms for us what we're doing and what we're trying to build here.
I love it. I love the Lasso reference. And, man, I unfortunately won't be in Salt Lake a week from Friday for your home opener, but I got to imagine that's going to be a pretty cool scene. So I'll be watching on AUDL.tv from afar. And, Bryce, wish you the best of luck. Look forward to catching up after more exciting shred moments down the road. Thanks so much for the time today.
Appreciate it. We'll talk to you soon.
Yep, Bryce Merrill, the head coach of the 2-0 Salt Lake Shred. AUDL Weekly rolls along with Adam and Daniel coming up next. Back on AUDL Weekly, great to welcome back in Adam Ruffner and Daniel Cohen. This duo hosts the Swing Pass podcast twice a week during the season. Gentlemen, welcome. Let's dive right in. Topic number one, story of the week was obviously the Salt Lake Shred. Jordan KERR had 16 assists in the 2 games. Adam, will come to you first. Over under 65 assists for Jordan KERR in the 2022 regular season.
I just want to start off by saying that KERR was sensational this weekend, and I already put him in a handful of players among most improved and possible MVP candidate, given the kind of weekend he had against the reigning divisional champion Growlers, and then the next night against the Aviators. However, I think 65 is a really high total. I think he came in gunning, and for as much as I love him in that striker role, like an Oscar on the West Coast for this Shred team, I think we might see different players in that Shred offense assume some of the scoring load as we move week to week. After talking with Jordan KERR and Joe Merrill yesterday, they were very emphatic about downplaying their statistical achievements from the weekend, and they're both leading the league in scoring right now. I just think that what was so impressive about the Shred, not only the individual performances, but the top-down team play. And I could just see them spreading the wealth as they work more into their rhythm. But man, what a debut weekend for Salt Lake.
Daniel?
I was going to use the Oscar comparison as well. And Oscar opened up last season with 8 assists in the first Empire game. Went on to finish with, I believe, 77 on the year. Basically, KERR has a very similar role in this Salt Lake offense. And yes, him and Merrill downplayed the meaning of stats to them personally, but they did say stats will probably come with their system. And I just think the amount of times we saw Jordan KERR get in position off of an initiating cut or in the red zone, just fire those lefty flicks time and time again in this opening weekend. 9 assists the first game, then 7 more following it up. I think he's the guy that is going to be throwing the most assists for this team easily. He is that role for this team, that aggressive piece, especially near the red zone. He is going to get the disc in the end zone. I'm taking the over. Oscar went over 70. I think 65 is a good number for KERR. I think 66 is an even better one. That's his jersey number. So I'm taking the
66 would be the over, and to get that, he needs 50 assists in the next 10 games, which is 5 a game. Obviously, he had 8 assists per game. He's on pace for 96, but I thought that would be a little too high to set the over-under at 96. Interestingly, Pavel Giannis's record-breaking season was 97, most assists ever in a season, but that was a 14-game season as well. So I actually think Mark Burton for Seattle had just above 8 assists per game for a whole year, but didn't play every game. Anyway, there's the history. Topic number 2. Obviously, both New York and DC look good in the Empire's win on Saturday night in our nation's capital. So, Daniel, over under 1.5 total losses for the Empire and Breeze to opponents other than each other, if that makes sense, in the 2022 regular season.
It does make sense. I'm taking the under here. I really don't think anyone is touching these teams at the top of the division. I mean, they combined for only 18 turnovers. The margins are just so slim when they're playing against each other. You just see all of this efficient offense repeatedly, possession after possession. I think the defense in particular, them playing defense against each other is really tough, but we saw in the Philly-Boston game, for example, it was very much a shootout. I think Montreal, it's going to be another high-scoring offense, but I think those teams are going to be susceptible to defenses that can shut them down better than the rest of the teams in the division. So I feel like defensively, DC and New York feel a step above the rest, and I also think offensively, they're probably 2 of the most efficient offenses in the league. So I don't really see any teams touching them this year. I think they're only going to lose to each other in 2022.
Adam, what you think?
Yeah, I got to agree with him and take the under. And you can just go ahead and say their names, Daniel. It's Jeff Babbitt and Antoine Davis. That's why teams are not going to want to test New York deep. And let's not forget, they just announced the signing of John Randolph, who will be joining the team in June. He is the best collegiate player in the world right now, and he played for the Seattle Cascades a couple years ago as a teenager and looked like a natural on the field. So they're going to slot him in possibly on D-line to go along with these guys. I mean, we all saw it. It looked like a championship game in week 1 between these two teams, and I just don't know, given what we've seen from the rest of the East, that there's going to be much of a challenge right now in the regular season. Obviously, that could change, but like you said, Daniel, the defense is just on a different level for DC and New York.
Wouldn't it be interesting if we get a postseason matchup with the Empire and the Breeze, and John Randolph is on the D-line guarding Jacques Nissen, his college teammate at Brown University. We'll see how they do it later this month at College Nationals. But yeah, that'll be one of the many spicy matchups on the field in future New York DC games. All right, topic number 3. Let's talk about what's ahead instead of what's behind. The only offense in the league that did not get broken once this past weekend was the Chicago Union. On a windy day against Pittsburgh, they went unbroken. So they go to Minnesota this weekend. Over under, Adam, 3.5 breaks for the Minnesota wind chill D-line against Chicago this Saturday night.
I'm going to take the slight over. I think it'll hit about 4. Now, I know they did that only one time last season in 3 meetings with Chicago, but I feel like the wind chill prepare for their first game of the season about as well as any team, and having an extra week to just prepare for Chicago after Chicago had to play Pittsburgh this past weekend, I think gives Minnesota a slight advantage. Now, obviously, Union are going to come in with a little bit of a rhythm established, but given the adverse elements, I didn't really see a whole bunch from Chicago that showed me that they're going to be able to handle Minnesota's athleticism on defense. I think it's going to be a great game, but I definitely think the Wind Chill's defense is going to be a big part of why they're going to be successful on Saturday night.
Daniel, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, the Chicago near 30 turnover game to start the season was not a great look for their offense. It was super windy. I was there, rainy, not great conditions. But that being said, I do think Minnesota is just going to have enough break opportunities. I think last season, Chicago offense was just so efficient and really did not make many mistakes. It's going to be a bit of a learning curve early in the season as they integrate some new pieces. So I think Minnesota still has a very, very good defense that they're going to get opportunities. They're going to, generate turnovers, force blocks, and have the disc in their hands a good amount. So I would take a slight over, agreed, maybe 4 or 5 breaks for Minnesota.
Alrighty. You're both taking the over. Real quick, does that mean you're both picking Minnesota to win over Chicago on Saturday?
I don't know about that.
I'll take Minnesota. 1.5.
All right. Well,
I'll
we got a Minnesota versus a Chicago native on the panel here, so I'm not shocked that you went with the teams that you did. All right. Topic number 4. We started with Salt Lake. Let's finish with them. They are the flavor of the week in more ways than one. How confident are you in the shred? Daniel, over under 8.5 wins for Salt Lake in the 2022 regular season.
It's amazing how much can change in one weekend, because I'm already regretting my answer of, what was it, last week's over-under when we talked about how many wins would the West Division champion have, and I took over. I thought they'd have over 9.5 wins. At this point, I mean, with Salt Lake going 2-0 the opening weekend, with how good they looked in those first 2 games, and like the way they looked good too, like they just have a lot of top to bottom talent throughout the roster. They have the star power at the top, but they really looked good defensively too, generating turnovers. I also think Portland looked really good. I'm taking the under. I don't think any team is going to finish with more than 9 wins in the West. I think it is going to be just an absolute brawl, probably between Salt Lake, Portland, Colorado, and San Diego. But maybe LA fights in there, maybe Seattle. I'm just excited for the West this year. But yeah, I don't think any team is going to dominate that division.
Adam?
I'm shredding it up, man. I'm gonna go with 9 wins. I'm gonna take the slide over.
Let's go.
I'm just so impressed with the Shred team. I think that if this is the real version of them, that they are capable of a 9-win season. I mean, they didn't make mistakes that rookie teams do. They made execution errors, which, given how well Bryce Merrill has this team prepared in their first 2 games, are going to get ironed out. It's not stuff that you see from a punchy team making, upstart wins. This looks like a bit of a contender this year, especially given how well they run and how much their defense challenges seemingly every throw. I don't know. I'm going to take the 9 wins. I'm going to ride high on this momentum and say, let's go Salt Lake.
Well, Adam, something in your pocket that you may or may not have factored in. I think the Shreds game at Colorado is Memorial Day weekend, which means the Summit will be playing at home against the Shred without many of their University of Colorado players that'll be presumably playing at College Nationals. So, sometimes the schedule breaks your way and the Shred are off to a great start. So we'll see if they can keep it rolling.
And speaking of the 2 expansion teams we did see this weekend in Salt Lake and Portland, they will be playing in the Week 11 game of the week. First time the 2 teams are meeting. It will basically be a playoff game because I think whoever wins that game might edge the other out some way in the standings. So I am so stoked for that matchup.
We got a lot of good games coming up, that's for sure. Adam and Daniel, look forward to listening to Swing Pass this week. Thanks for the time. Over, under, 100% over. Coming up, Matt Smith's Up, Line, and Out of Bounds. But first, I believe we've got a brand new Cohen's Cut.
What's up, AUDL fans? Daniel Cohen here with this week's Cohen's Cut. Today we're going to be looking at the Atlanta Hustle zone defense and how they work as a unit to pressure opposing offenses. So Atlanta's 3-3-1 zone is one of their more common sets, where the goal is to take away downfield throwing lanes in the handler space. They set up with 3 defenders at the front of the zone, 3 defenders across the field at the intermediate level, and 1 deep defender playing safety. The base setup for the first level of the zone is sort of this inverted triangle, with the mark playing more or less straight up, and he's flanked by a defender on either side playing a few yards back. This is going to significantly limit downfield throwing lanes and often force the disc to be swung towards a sideline or move backwards. If it does go to a sideline, Atlanta has the opportunity to set a sideline trap, where the defender closest will become the mark and the 2 other defenders will either help set a double team or clamp down on the dump options. Since a swing is always likely from a sideline, the offside defender will usually hang back towards the middle of the field to take away that look. The second level of the zone includes 2 wing defenders whose job it is to stop those crossfield over the top throws or continuation looks to their side. The middle defender is typically operating closer to the front wall, looking to fill any gaps or pick up cutters coming into the handler space. So the Hustle are able to force the turnover here against Boston by moving as a unit, staying disciplined, and anticipating the next throw. When the disc is swung over to the far sideline, the wall plus middle defender move to get in front of the thrower, which forces the disc back to the middle of the field. Middle defender Ben Gagne-Maynard sees an opening being filled by Willie Stewart, so he pounces on Stewart to take away that immediate look through the wall. This forces the handler to his next option, a swing to the near side of the field. But Kelvin Williams, who stayed home in the middle of the field on the swing to the far side, he's in perfect position to read the thrower's eyes and deny the swing with his 6'3" range. 2 throws later, and the disc is caught in the end zone for what would ultimately be the game-clinching goal. Thanks for watching, and be sure to join me next time for another Cohen's Cut.
What's up, AUDL world, and welcome to another regular season episode of Upline and Out of Bounds. Today I am joined by one of the league's most exciting players, honestly, Mr. Nick Vogt out of the Minnesota Wind Chill. How's it going, Nick?
Good. How are you doing, Matt?
I am doing great. I'm excited for the audience to get to know you a little more, and so with that in mind, we're just going to hop right into the intro. So first question for you here, hometown.
Yeah, so I'm from Edina, Minnesota, which is a suburb of Minneapolis, and people may have heard of it nowadays for the youth program there is pretty big now.
Very cool. Current age?
Yeah, so I'm 26, which feels pretty old these days.
Absolutely. College, did you attend college? If so, what degree or major did you pursue?
Yeah, so I went to the University of Wisconsin, Madison, and there I got my degree in material science and engineering.
All right. And outside of being an outstanding Ultimate player, what is your other day job or career path?
Yeah, so I'm an application specialist for an adhesive manufacturer. So basically, I do lab work with glue.
All right. Very interesting. We're going to flip over to the Ultimate side here. So why don't you fill everybody in on your Ultimate origin story?
Yeah, so I started playing Ultimate my junior year of high school. My best friend had invited me to come out to tryouts. He had been playing for a few years already, so I started there at Edina High School, and then went on to play 5 years with the Wisconsin Hodags at the University of Wisconsin, and then I've been back in Minneapolis ever since, playing club and AUDL.
Yeah, that's awesome. High school to the pros. Current position on the field?
Yeah, so I'm definitely a downfield player, so I do a lot of cutting downfield, mostly on offense. Sometimes I'll play a little bit of defense on the defensive line, I should say. I always play defense. But yeah, primarily on the offensive line.
A man after my own heart, for sure. And last one here, favorite AUDL moment so far?
Yeah, it's got to be our playoff game against Chicago last year. It obviously didn't end the way we wanted it to. We sort of fell apart towards the end of there, but we really showed the league that we were up there competing with the best. We were going blow for blow with the Union. It didn't turn out how we wanted to, but we had a really great game and a really great year with that group. I'd say within that game, one moment that I really enjoyed was Brian Vanuka sent up a big hammer, and I was able to get the right read on it, the right run up to it, and go up big for a sky and score big hold for us. So that was definitely a fun moment in that game.
Absolutely. I'm sure we'll get a clip up of it. I remember it. That was pretty sick. All right. Well, now that the audience knows you a little bit better, we're going to jump into today's game. And today's game is fill in the blanks. All right. This one is pretty simple. I'm going to just give you a sentence. You fill in the blank, and also give me a little bit of why. So, first one here. As a downfield receiver, I've seen you score a lot. And I know you've got a lot of good celebrations. So I will fill in this sentence. My favorite spike or celebration is blank.
Yeah, it's got to be the dab. It's been something that goes back a little bit to college. A couple friends of mine, roommates, teammates, Ross Parker, who's in the league still with the Union. We had a lot of fun doing that in practice, doing that together on the Hodags. It's something that I've just carried with me into club and AUDL, obviously. So.
Yeah, and I'm sure we'll be seeing it more this year. Another ultimate question here is, I wear number 8 because blank.
Yeah, because Kobe Bryant. So I tore my ACL back in 2017 in college, and then came back for the 2018 season and really wanted to approach my recovery and return with more of a Mamba mentality. And a lot of people use that word, use that phrase, but really just being locked in and wanting to be the aggressor, be the person dominating on the field at all times. And so to sort of remind myself to do that, I went with Kobe's first number in the NBA, number 8.
Very cool. An inspiration to a lot of people, for sure. Sticking with athletics here, I know you're a Minnesota guy, so blank is the most impactful Minnesota athlete of all time. You can cross sports. I know that's a loaded question. I'm trying to give you some time here. It could be football, basketball, baseball, ultimate. Where are you going with this?
I think I'm going to say Randy Moss, and that might be showing my age a little bit. I'm sure people from Minnesota will have other people from previous generations that they'd put ahead of him, but I mean, it's hard to think of a more dominant player in their prime that's played for a Minnesota sports team. I mean, like, really just throw the ball up to him. He's going to come down with it. He's going to make a play. There's that legendary stat line of like 3 receptions, 168 yards, and 3 touchdowns that he put up one game. Like, the guy was just incredible. So a lot of fun to watch, and he's been a huge impact on Minnesota sports for sure.
Yeah, great answer. He was my Blitz 2000 MVP on the N64 as well.
Well,
all right. Well, thanks for playing the game with me. But unfortunately, we are out of time for today. Before we get out of here, though, any last shout-outs you want to give?
Yeah, I want to shout out Edina High School's Ultimate Team. I know Nate Wohl, the coach there, just picked up, I think, his 200th career win with the team. That's incredible. He's built a dynasty out there. So big props to Edina. Thank you, Nate, for all you've done for Edina Ultimate.
Very cool. Staying true to where you came from. All right. Well, unfortunately, like I said, we got to run for today. I know I speak for the rest of the AUDL audience. I'm excited to watch you and the retooled Minnesota take on Chicago and everybody else in the division throughout the season. But for now, back to Evan.
Thanks, Matt. And again, congrats to you on the #1 SportsCenter play this past Friday night. Also cool to hear from Minnesota's rising star, Nick Vogt. And as a quick note, every week on AUDL.TV, you can catch bonus content from Matt Smith's Upline and Out of Bounds, including a second game that they play each week. Trust me, it's great content. Check it out on AUDL.TV. That'll do it for the show tonight. My thanks go out to everyone involved, including Adam Ruffner, Daniel Cohen, Bryce Merrill, Matt Smith, and Nick Vogt. And of course, thanks to our editor extraordinaire, Luke Johnson. My name's Evan Lepler, thanking you for joining us for tonight's edition of AUDL Weekly. Enjoy the Ultimate this coming weekend, everybody, and I'll talk to you right back here next Wednesday.